And welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, nationally and internationally known as the Money Lady. Have been involved in the field of banking, insurance, finance for 36 years. Can you believe it? I am officially a senior myself and a member of that 10,000 numbers a day strong group called the Baby Boomers. And for the entirety of the next hour, you need to sit down and listen to what I am going to share with you. I always try to do a forecast for the upcoming year. I did it last year. If you'll go to my YouTube, that's youtube.com/The Power of Money, you will hear my forecast for last year, which was pretty much on the dot. But what I'm going to talk about this year as we are entering into 2013, and boy, oh boy, what a year it is going to be. Listen to me well, and you don't want to miss everything I'm going to share with you because this is major. The Mayans, according to antiquity, said that the world ended on December 21st. So everybody was looking out their window to see if this prediction was true. And of course, we're still here today. The world as we know it did not end, but the world system as we know it did end. Everything is in the middle of change as we speak. And what the Mayans did not speak and predict on is what is actually occurring. For me to say that we are in a catharsis right now in terms of the globe, in terms of our lives, in terms of the economy, politics, internet, drones, fatigue, sequestering, fiscal cliff, everything is in the midst of radical and cataclysmic flux. Who would have thought, and this is all I'm going to say, who would have thought even 10 years ago that we would be looking at the times that we're looking at today? Who would have thought in our wildest dreams and expectations that we would be dealing with drones the size of mosquitoes hovering and watching, or cell phones that are cheap and no telephones, the landline history, telephone booths non-existent, laptops, and now mobile telephones, smartphones replacing how technology was. Things are rapidly evolving and even more rapidly to come. So lock yourself in and be prepared for this ride, because this is going to be a ride in 2013 as we officially begin our launch into this new world order. And I don't want to start talking about conspiracy theories and about biblical prophecies, but I am telling you that everything we thought was secure is no longer secure. For starters, China has officially replaced the United States as the world's largest economy in terms of its gross domestic product. That happened approximately 10 days ago, based on when this show is being taped. This month, February, China officially became the largest economy in the world, with a formidable military and agenda that is tough. We also found out that they have been, through their own operations, they've been spying on our power grids and our corporations and other things. And while they're fiercely denying it, who wouldn't? The reality is that our own internal operations have isolated and determined that they are engaged in international espionage to destroy our way of life. Now, how are you going to deal with those politics? I'm not a politician, but I do know that they have over 2 billion people as opposed to our 250 million people. That's a whole lot of people. And also their country is predominantly male. which is there's a whole lot of testosterone going around. And it's going to be a rocky thing. Now, that's China, but we're also looking at what's happening in emerging economies, countries that used to be considered third world, or as we would say, gangster countries. They didn't have a political infrastructure. Their economies were very, very stratified and not stable. But here we are today. We're looking at Brazil emerging as a major international player because of their emphasis on naturally sourced oil. We're looking at Africa, which had been the stepchild, but is emerging. And trust me, the Chinese are over there. They've got trade relationships with most African countries to ensure that they will have land and resources. The United States should have been over there taking care of our business. But we're looking at Africa emerging. We're looking at India, which is the second largest population group in the world. And they are emerging with their economies and with their growing demand for equity and equality, pushing on resources, one of them being oil, another being electricity and technology, right behind China. So if you look at the way the world was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, it was primarily Western, which is Europe, and the United States, including Canada, not as a stepchild. Canada is formidable in its own economic right. But I'm speaking to you about the times and the seasons so you'll get a perspective. So everything has changed. And for some of us, we just missed it. We didn't know it happened. Some of us sensed it but couldn't put a handle on it. And I'm saying to you that along with these changing economies and the ascending of nations and the descending of nations, I mean the European Union, which was heralded as the great common market, is in shambles as Spain struggles to maintain its economic stability, and other countries, Portugal, France, we won't even talk about France. Britain is debating whether they even want to play ball with these guys anymore. But here we are, the unthinkable is now upon us. And so what does that mean, and what does that say, and and as you say, well, Miss Graves, what does that have to do with me? Everything, everything. You are no longer an island. Decisions are being made globally that are impacting on your world. And decisions are being made right now nationally that unbeknownst to you, you were probably right there in the midst, blindly creating this dilemma. And the dilemma that I'm talking about is the 10,000 people a day, known as baby boomers, who are retiring from our economic system. And let me just put this in perspective so that you will understand. Japan went through a very similar outmigration of its boomers, so-called boomers. And as a result of that in 1978, put them in a quasi-depression recession for almost 14 years. They're still not where they need to be. So we don't want to turn our nose on demographic changes because this is major. And as I share with people, whether you like it or not, it's here, it is upon us, and the challenge is going to be for you, how are you going to make your moves strategically so that you and your family are not thrown under the bus? Because viewers, like it or not, a lot of people are going to be thrown under the bus. A lot of people are already under the bus. The number of people that are permanently and long-term unemployed is staggering. I don't even want to give the statistics. These people will never, ever be brought back into this fast-paced, techno-focused economy. Their skill sets are from the old system, where they knew how to make parts and they knew how to manufacture, but they never ever improved their skills. They never developed the kind of aptitude or attitude for where we are today. And for those that are in that group that still have jobs, they're holding on with every ounce of their strength because they're looking back, and we have a generation of young people, oh yeah, colleges continue to spit them out every year, who cannot get jobs, who are laden with debt, and who are living at home. Don't you just like that story? That's not what they started off thinking. So why am I saying all of this? Because, as I said, this show is about my forecast for 2013. And my forecasts are going to be sobering for most of you because they're not necessarily good, but there are a few bright points that I want to make sure that you are aware of and can handle. The 10,000 people a day that are leaving the workplace that are known as baby boomers are the result of the largest birthing of children in this country's history. Right after World War I, when all the men came home, what did they do? They had children. And they didn't have one or two, they had children. And that group, actually starting in 1948, and almost for a period of 20 years, the families produced. And that generation that they produced was responsible for the fastest growth in this country's history. The baby boomers were responsible for the fast cars, for the houses, for the credit, buying everything, enjoying life. Their parents cradled them, and their parents indulged them because we were just coming out of a war, and most people at that time really were excited about America's future because America was the kingpin. After all, we blew up Japan, we subdued Hitler, and boom, here we are. The great American John Wayne, let's get 'em personality. So while all of this was happening, manufacturers began to pump out washing machines. They began to build homes through the FHA program. They developed highways that brought forth Ford and General Motors and Chrysler and all the to provide automobiles to transport all these people. Okay, McDonald's birthed because people wanted to eat out and they wanted the experience of having that extra money. America was on a spin, and in the middle of this spin were the baby boomers. I grew up in that period in time, and good Lord, I did not have a clue that we were about to change the face of this country. The baby boomers brought the Vietnam War situation. We were the ones that picketed and protested and went to war and had the draft. The draft, right, you were conscripted to go to war. And we marched, and the hippie movement, and all of the things that went along with that very radical burn your bra, the feminist movement, as women determined that I'm not going to be in a home like Donna Reed. I want to find myself. And women went into the marketplace in record numbers, the baby boomers. We not only changed the culture of this country and had our parents scratching their heads as we wore platform shoes and hot pants and beads and bohemian dress and tie-dyed and wild and wacky music, Jimi Hendrix, look away, Janet Joplin, baby boomers. Think culture, because this group created a major shift in how America proceeded, how we looked at life and looked at pleasure and didn't believe in sacrifice. Why? Because our parents didn't teach us to sacrifice. We came out of a different culture. Our parents wanted to give us the things that they did not have. And as a result, when we became adults and entered into the marketplace beginning in 1968, we created an economic tsunami of spending and luxury and fun and travel and vacations and businesses, and it never ended. It never ended. At least we thought. The country was lending money, credit was easy, decisions were made without a lot of thought. We absolutely felt that we could do anything the 10,000 people a day group called baby boomers. And here is the central issue today. That same group that inspired and pushed our country to great prosperity is now leaving the labor force in record numbers. It's all been predicted. And because of this outmigration, the whole face of America, as we speak, is changing. For starters, when people retire, they don't pay into the system known as the Internal Revenue Service, the government's great collection agency. They don't pay in the same amount or level of taxes because they are now retired. Okay? So they're coming out of the labor force. The second thing they're doing is the whole notion of home ownership. When you're in your 60s and 70s, you don't want a huge home. You want flexibility. So you've got all of this inventory from seniors, baby boomers who want to downsize and transition. Now, normally, that type of an activity would have a ready demand of young people who would want to buy these homes because they're going to have children, they need good schools, etc. But remember, our population of young people is significantly less than the 10,000 people a day population group called baby boomers that are leaving. And the demand for housing has collapsed. It's more than the mismanagement and criminal activity of our mega banks. It's deeper than that. Yeah, the toxic mortgage-backed securities and collateralized debt obligations and all those fancy terms that just simply say scam artist, that pales in comparison to the number of baby boomers who are moving out of the market and don't want those big houses. I, for one, dumped my house 2 years ago. My children are grown and long gone, and what did I need with a 4-bedroom Tudor home? I moved into a cupcake house. Why? Because I'm never here. I don't need that to make my day. I need something that's simple and basic and that I can come and go. I'm no different than most other baby boomers who are making those decisions. Now, and sadly, because of the economy, a lot of baby boomers are stuck with these houses and stuck with the children that came along with the house that they thought they would be free of because the children cannot get employment because of the economy. And that's another conversation. I hope to cover that during this segment. But my point being that when you get older, your priorities shift from making a lot of money and trying to buy things and taking care of children and vacations and second homes and this and that, and your life begins to simplify. Your major concerns as you grow older, and seniors, you can validate this. You want safety. You want to make sure your money does not get lost. So forget about playing in the stock market because you're not going to do it. You want safety. So you're going to see more and more seniors purchase annuities, which are life insurance contracts, again, with guaranteed returns and guaranteed principal. Those are very specific retirement-oriented instruments. They're going to be removing and pulling out a lot of money out of the stock market. Don't you be fooled. They're going to do it because the stock market is equity-based. You play in the stock market. You don't plan for safety and stability if you're rolling the dice. So look for and anticipate large amounts of money leaving the stock market. And before you say, but the stock market's doing great, I'm here to tell you, and so what? What does that have to do with you? Are you willing to gamble your future on something that's not so secure? And that is something that seniors and those 10,000 people a day are making decisions about, which is, I don't think I want to do this. I think I want to downsize. I think I want to tighten up my money. I think I'd like to travel while I can. And I say while I can because the baby boomers also bring to the table something that most people don't think about until they get our age. And that is the body begins to have health issues. Yes, for those of us that are organic and eating well, wonderful. But the statistics say that as you get older, you begin to have health concerns because your body is affected. Your body is not what it used to be, and it doesn't do the things that it used to do. Right? I know I'm right. Okay? I have to talk to my leg from time to time until it get moving. And people are like, God, she's moving along great. And I'm like, but you don't know my story. I am a baby boomer, and the body is not a permanent health type thing. No matter how wonderful you eat, etc., things begin to happen. And that is why we see such an emphasis emerging on Medicare, because Medicare is a health program, a government health program for all seniors over the age of 65. It is not optional. It is a mandatory program. And their concern is the financial stability of Medicare. And they need to be concerned about that. Because when you got 77 million people moving into Medicare and it was never properly funded, you have a problem. Because it is a fact that seniors, as they age, are going to be dealing increasingly with health issues. And that is a Medicare situation. Remember, age 65 and over, you must enroll. Whether you use the program or not, seniors, it does not matter. Whether you're gainfully employed in the private sector, it does not matter. You must enroll at 65. Now, do the math. Since they never funded for the massive influx of seniors, then you know that's going to be a problem. The same thing with Social Security. I think it's a ludicrous argument to say that Social Security is going to remain solvent. Social Security was never set up as the only retirement plan. It was one of three legs when FDR set it up. He wanted you to have your Social Security as your background, as your backdrop. If your other two alternatives, which is your savings and your pension plan, blew up, you'd have Social Security as your third leg. For most people today, because pension plans are just about non-existent, the traditional pension plan, which was a defined benefit, which is you were guaranteed X number of dollars every month, and then your personal savings, which could be your home, your real estate investments, your equity and bond holdings. Well, heck, they don't even do defined benefit plans anymore. Most of them are being phased out in favor of 401k plans, which is a defined contribution. You contribute money into the plan, right. And when we talk about the other leg, which is your home values, are you kidding me? Home values have collapsed. Stock market doesn't matter. We went through some rough years. So now the data says that the majority of Americans that are working class, I'm not talking about the 1% that are rich, I'm talking about the regular working class Americans, are dependent upon Social Security to be their end all. And may I be open with you, viewers? You and I both know that's bad math. Social Security cannot, I don't care what the soothsayers are saying. Read your statement. Read the front page of your Social Security annual statement. They have some very interesting verbiage that they put on, which basically says These numbers are just estimates because we really don't know. Well, I tell you what, yes, you do. You know full well that you cannot sustain a program that was never designed for people who were going to live too much more past 65. And when seniors are living to age 90, and the fastest growing group of seniors is over 100, the centenarians, I mean, they're running around doing great on Social Security. So what does that say for the baby boomers like myself and the generation behind us? As I told my children, you got to be kidding me. I'm not going to get any Social Security. I'm not naive. My parents will, and they should. They paid into it. The assumptions were reasonable. But the government did not adequately fund. So how are they going to remedy Social Security? Well, that's going to be a tough one, considering the fact that we can't even balance our budget. We can't even put this, I mean, come on. How are you going to talk about Social Security? So as I tell people that are baby boomers, you need to have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D, a plan E, a plan, as many plans as you want to have, you need to have them, because there is a strong probability that the government will not be able to provide you with that much anticipated nest egg at the payout that you're anticipating. That can happen. Again, it's simple math. So what are your alternatives? Well, I will tell people you're going to have to go back to that great American spirit and be creative. And that is that you may probably be working for the rest of your life, which, for the record, that doesn't bother me at all. I look forward to being able, if my health is great and if my attitude is positive, why shouldn't I contribute? Why shouldn't I work? Why shouldn't I continue my practice? Why not? Who says that at 65 you're done and you need to go to pasture? That's an old world assumption too, that ended on December the 21st, as the Mayans said. That's not going to work. You're going to find more and more seniors that are not going to retire, that are going to stay in the market and are not going to take advantage of the opportunities. However, there are many who will. And those 10,000 baby boomers a day that are retiring is going to continue for, again, the next 20 years. But I'm talking to you about how to get through this. If you don't have enough retirement in savings and you're going to be forced to retire, what are your alternatives? Well, again, you can look to get another job, a part-time job. You can look at other resources. You don't have to live in the United States. Many people are moving to other countries where the cost of living is cheaper and where their means are more affordable. I mean, for real. There are other parts of the world that you can actually live in, and you will find that there are quite a few Americans there as well who are seniors and who chose to live overseas. Again, these are all about change and recognizing how that change looks and what you need to do. The other thing, and this thing is for certain, I don't care what Congress says, taxes are going up, period. Taxes are going up. Why? Because revenues are going down. That's a fact. And revenues have been going down as the number of people that are on entitlement programs are increasing, and the economy and the number of baby boomers that are leaving. So the government is going to increase your taxes. I don't care what the political spin is. This is the truth. Because as people age, they need more programs to help them. They do. And again, that's government. That's not private sector. They not only need more in terms of the issue of Medicare, but they need programs to help them, because aging is not a laughing matter. How are these programs going to be financed and funded? They're going to be funded through taxes. And as I've shared in previous shows, it's not just taxes levied by the federal government or mandated by the state. There are a variety of taxes that are assessed on people every day, from your driver's license tax. I absolutely believe that municipalities and states are going to levy higher sales tax. I believe gas taxes are going to increase along with gas prices, because again, that's a global piece. You know, China is pushing hard, pushing hard. You got a lot of countries that are looking to grow, and they've got their own middle class that's emerging, and they like cars too. They like houses too. Believe me, been there, saw it for myself. So you got these things going. Your qualified plans, for many of you, that is going to be an amazing resource if you have not leveraged your qualified plan to pay for your children's tuition, which many have. And that's not being irresponsible. That's being a parent. Who would have thought that when you took money out of your 401k or your 403b to pay for your children's college, that they wouldn't be able to get a job? I mean, talk about unintended consequences. That is really not amusing. The number of parents that went into debt, baby boomers, to pay for their children to have opportunities that they didn't have, or they wanted their children to have more. Parents do it all the time. In today's economy, I don't recommend you do that, because we've got some major issues that are going to have to be addressed. Mainly, a market that's going to be able to absorb all of these young people. Very, very real thing. I will also say the reason taxes are going to have to go up, because we simply have fewer people in the labor force. The generations behind us were numerically not where we were and are. And therefore, payroll taxes, and I know you're screaming, a lot of you, which is, God, they just went up. Well, the truth of the matter is, it was a political move. They should never have been down, because payroll taxes are essential for creating a future base. And I predict and project that you're going to see, maybe not in 2013, but as we look down the playing field, you're going to see payroll taxes increase as fewer workers have to contribute to this pot of money that is needed. We're going to, not only with increased taxation, we're going to see decreasing benefit. And we're just starting to deal with that with this furloughing of government workers to try to bring some kind of order in our government. Because, sad as it is, but truthful as it is, viewers, we can't default on our debt. And it doesn't matter if all of us have to start doing road work free. We have lots of debt. In fact, our debt is staggering as I speak. In fact, I don't even want to think about it, because we owe out more than we bring in. And actually, in terms of unfunded liabilities like Social Security and Medicare and other venues, we owe out far more than we bring in. And that's why I get kind of irritated when I think about Congress creating this mess with the U.S. Postal Service. Because actually, they're not broke, but they are broke trying to meet funding obligations honorably mandated by Congress for their retirees. It's killing them. It's absolutely killing them. So I want to shift back, because you're going to get greater taxation, you're going to have fewer benefits, you're going to see the stock market, and I don't care what it's doing, because again, the stock market is not the economy. And I'm talking about the economy. I'm not talking about trading in short terms. More and more seniors are coming out of the stock market because they don't want the risk. They just don't. So we're going to see a lot of activity over 2013 in the stock market. And may come sooner than that if we don't balance our budget. Yeah. You know, it's an amazing thing. We elect these people and send them to office. And it must be the water in Washington, D.C. It has to be the water. Because the person that goes there is not the person we see when we watch them talking on C-SPAN. And you're like, I voted for you. And what happened? Well, I'm going to tell you, they drank the water, they ate funny food. Congress has a mandate on itself that we not only have to increase taxes, but we've got to find ways to generate revenues in lieu of this demographic shift, which, by the way, and I say this because in 2006, former Comptroller General, that's the man that handles the money, Dave Walker, said, we are all heading to a future where we'll have to double federal taxes or cut federal spending by 60%. He said it in 2006 because the data was already there. They knew that we were getting ready to retire. They knew, these guys are smart. They knew what they weren't anticipating, what they could not have anticipated, was all the other stuff that happened, that Americans would no longer be manufacturing kings, and that our productive capacity had gone overseas to China, to Mexico, to other countries due to NAFTA. That they did not predict how massive that trickle down was going to be. But it is now here and it is upon us. We're also seeing, and that's not going to change with the baby boomers. Yeah, the baby boomers are doing their best to get out of debt, to cut back their spending, but old habits are hard to quit. And so while we saw a contraction in the amount of outstanding debt, we're seeing people starting to spend money again like they're crazy. And bankruptcies among seniors. Why? Because they're in debt. And a lot of it is medical, a lot of it is not. A lot of it is just overextension. And so they bankrupt because that's the American way. What am I to say? It's legal and they do it. But this is major because, again, you're talking about credit losses in the millions of dollars for banks. And please don't misunderstand, because I do not feel sorry for banks. They make their money through money. Really. They take a piece of paper and watch it make money. But I am saying that for the American consumer, this is going to be major. And for people that are in my age group, baby boomers, we're going to see lots of things increase in price because they're passing along those losses. Now, again, talking about the shift, the 10,000 people leaving the job market every single day for the next 20 years. Woo-wee! Can you believe it? I was in Florida, I was walking on the beach, I looked around, and there were few children and a ton of seniors. Really. It was kind of different. And I said, well, I better get used to it, because as you get older, you really don't like cold weather. And I can hear some of you in the background saying, you're so right. So what does this all mean? It basically means that we are approaching what is known as the perfect economic storm, where we're dealing with the reality of unprecedented debt levels. Hear me. At all levels of government, we're looking at currency. The dollar isn't worth much of anything. If we don't stop printing money, thinking it's going to stimulate the economy, printing money, gentlemen, is not our answer when everybody is leaving the job market. They're not going to be spending any money. Seniors are trying to cut back. They're trying to conserve. This stimulus process, in my opinion, is not going to work. It is going to create, though, some unintended consequences, one of them being inflation. Right, because cheap money means all your goods and services are more expensive. Have you been to the store lately, called the grocery store, and tried to buy meat or vegetables or anything? It's expensive to go to the grocery store. And as I share with people, manufacturers are not stupid. They're going to pass on their costs to you. Now, mind you, we had a bad 2012 in the Midwest. Corn was just done, crispy everywhere. Cattle are the primary consumers of corn. But many, many other commodities have also increased in price because, again, supply costs have gone up. Manufacturers are not going to eat it. With oil prices going up, importing of goods and services from other countries, most notably China and Japan, have skyrocketed. This is causing a problem because the money that you have is spending less. That's called inflation. Okay? And while there is a differing of opinion from economists about whether we need to be worried about inflation or deflation, and deflation basically is where you've got so many goods and nobody wants to buy any. And I'm prepared to say this about deflation in 2013. We're already in the midst of deflation. How many of you want to buy a 42-inch color television flat screen for $395? Why? Because everybody has a television. Two or three of them. How many do you want to buy? And furthermore, the technology may very well make those televisions obsolete shortly. Right. That's why Apple's heavily invested in developing its own television technology. Really. How many people used to just love cable television? And now you're seeing a shift from that because people are like, I can do that on my computer and plug it into my TV. These are technological shifts that are irreversible because technology is moving so quickly. But the result of that is a bunch of commodities that no one wants to buy. That's called deflation. So prices keep coming down because at some point the assumption is you're going to buy this stuff. Unfortunately, there has not been as much movement as we thought or anticipated. People really have bought all they want to buy. How many dresses do you want to have in your closet? How many shoes? Particularly when you are one of the 10,000 baby boomers leaving the market every day. You don't even dress to go to work. You don't go to work. You're retired. For those that do go to work, it's a very relaxed environment. Gosh, when I was in investment banking and banking, the suit and tie was standard. You had better have your couture, your escada, your valet. You'd better look like a executive woman. Today, oh my goodness, come in blue jeans, they come in casuals. They don't do that other than very high levels of executive. People don't dress like that. Seniors don't dress like that. They buy a good pair of gym shoes, Easy Spirit or New Balance, and that's it. One pair of gym shoes, wear them out, buy another. That's not stimulative for the economy. It isn't. But it is a buy decision based upon their conscious decision to not spend money and to not outlive their resources. The number one fear among all seniors is outliving their resources. The second is being dependent upon their children to take care of them. And I think those are two valid concerns. Most seniors are pretty independent. They don't want to live like that. They want to have their good stuff going. But I want to talk to you about this because the period we're in right now, and we just thought we were coming out of a recession, and I said, no, you're not. We're getting ready to go into a big recession because as the government, which has been feeding our economy, begins to scale back because of revenues, greater demand but lesser money, right, then you're going to see this filter down into private sector. And it's already filtering down because government does not produce. Government spends money. That's what they do. So you're going to see a really different kind of a play where people's spending habits are radically changing because they're aging. greater demand for certain types of services, including health care, right, because you have health issues. Certain types of insurance are going to become increasingly important, long-term care being one of them. And for the record, let me be clear. The government wants you to take out private pay long-term care. And the reason they do, and they will subsidize it, is because Medicaid for seniors is bankrupting many state and state governments, and they can't afford it. So as I tell seniors, while you're busily leaving the market, you make sure that you have a very thorough long-term care policy for chronic care. That's chronic. That's not Medicare. That's not health-based. That's when you have issues with diabetes, Parkinson's, Alzheimer, chronic debilitation, stroke-related, high blood pressure. All these things just get worse. So I wanted to sidebar and kind of put that in there. While you are moving out, just recognize that you're in a changing environment and that things are not going to be the same. Now, again, where do I say this with such confidence? Because Japan experienced a similar phenomena 15 to 20 years ago when their baby boomers started exiting. And it hit the stock market, real estate, it hit the economy, and 14 years of a dark cloud, 14 years. I don't know how long we'll have this dark cloud. I really don't. I can't see that far, but I can see far enough to say that we are now facing the greatest economic, what's the right term? The greatest economic tsunami that this country has ever experienced, far exceeding the atomic bombs and all of that war stuff, because wars actually are great for economies. They kill a lot of people. But that war allowed our country to make a bunch of money producing goods and services. And yes, there was rationing, but again, we actually, World War II was a great thing for our economy. Can't do any more wars like that. We want our troops home. We want them working when they come home. That's another story, because where are the jobs? Right. Where are the skills? Right. Here we are again. So we've got our military coming back home. And we really do need to have something for them. But here's the rub. And the rub is this. If government takes a lead role in dealing with unemployment through stimulative plans like roads and infrastructure, you hear all this all the time, but just recognize, again, that every time the government prints money, they have to borrow money to make this happen because we don't have any money. Okay? So my question is, this is all well and good, but who's got to pay for this, and how are we going to pay for this when we are not very stable? And before you say, oh, our credit rating is good, are you serious? Your credit rating is based upon your financial stability and solvency. Right. Your credit rating is not some pie in the sky. It is a very real indicator. And that is why the United States government is suing Standard & Poor's, because they really believe that we were impacted adversely, and our country was, through Standard & Poor's wonderful ratings on banks and their mortgage-backed securities and their credit debt obligations. It was a lie. It was garbage. And a lot of foreign people, wealthy people, made decisions based upon those ratings. So don't expect a lot of goodwill from credit ratings. They hopefully will rate us accordingly. And there's an excellent rating service, WEISS, W-E-I-S-S rating. They will give you the ratings for the banks and everybody else. Awesome. You can find it out yourself. Why do you need to know this? Because you really need to know even the safe money you have, where it needs to be. You should not be out here being bamboozled by what you think is the truth, because a lot of this is just marketing hype. It really, really is. Now, as we look at pension funds, and a lot of you have pension funds, and whether your pension fund's going to pay out or not, I have no clue. You need to look at what they've invested in. And if they've invested heavily into bonds, which are really in trouble, or whether they're playing in equity and real estate, you need to know that. And the other thing I will say to every senior that's coming out, that $10,000 a day, is that whatever you do, do not leave your former employer in charge of your money. Please don't do that. That tells me, and should tell you, that you are not thinking correctly, or logically, or sensibly. Take your money with you and put it in something that is safe and secure. And I do mean CDs, they're not paying anything, and they're bank instruments, and you got to look at the credit worthiness of the bank. But please be aware that there are some options, but it's going to be on you to do an entire assessment and then make those decisions for yourself. 2013, we're going to see the collapse of a number of companies that are old technology, but we're going to see the emergence of a number of smaller companies that can run the race. And that's going to be great. I'm excited about that. I'm excited about green living, green energy. People are starting to use internet as a tool to get information. From the medications your doctor prescribes, everything from what your doctor prescribes to what you eat. All of that is online, and there are some awesome websites that will give you information on how you need to live in this changing system that offers tremendous opportunity if you're well informed, but can be very bad if you're not. The days where you took somebody's advice just cause they have a title are gone. As I tell doctors, you need to be informed. Chiropractors are a credible form of medicine. Acupuncture is a credible form of medicine. Ask the Chinese. 3,000 years, that doesn't mean something? Come on. Homeopathic medicine is a credible form of getting healed. You just have to be careful. But then you have to be careful anyway. Again, these are emerging, or I should say re-emerging ways of living that 10 years ago we wouldn't have even thought about. I believe that we're going to see more and more people coming back to what I call normal. And I was pleased when I looked at the Emmys that the women were properly and modestly attired. It's not that I'm a prude, but I do believe that children should be protected. And it's just, some of the stuff is just disgusting. The same thing with profanity on television. I'm like, come on, folks. Is it really necessary to do that? And despite the liberality of the baby boomers, because again, we challenged the system, we protested, we listened to rock music. A lot of us did things that were just totally outrageous. I think you might find that we turn out more like our parents than we want to, because we have seen what liberality without boundaries will bring you. And we did not look carefully at the dark side. As I was sharing, how many people knew that flame retardant was on your bed linens and on your clothing, and that it caused cancer? I mean, what? These are the things that we didn't look at. We weren't thinking about it. We were doing other things. But this is now here. So the challenge that remains for all of us, the 10,000 people a day that are retiring from the job market, is to recognize that America is still an awesome country to be a citizen of, bringing tremendous value, inspiration. I mean, heck, you can start a business, you can sell things, you can bake cakes, you can make money by providing to the market something that people want. It's still a great land of opportunity. And so I challenge all of you, to look at this and to look at where do you fit in. What are you willing to do differently and to do even better? How are you willing to morph yourself into somebody that you didn't even know? There's a hip-hop singer called Nicki Minaj. My kids always tease me about these things. But she had a song out that said, everybody dies, but not everybody lives. And I've taken that to heart, because one of the things I've learned as I've grown older is that you must look at a situation, evaluate it personally and critically, and then see for yourself how I need to make my moves in this situation. I've just given you a framework for 2013 that is going to be challenging, that's going to deal with a lot of cataclysmic moves. You're going to turn on the television and say, oh, I cannot believe this is happening. I mean, really. But yet within all of that, how are you going to live? My challenge to you is to stop sleeping and wake up. Stop complaining and make it happen. And go for you. Make your life a life to remember. And on that note, I'm going to end my commentary on 2013. Hold your hats. It's going to be the run of a lifetime. Take care, and as always, I wish you God's best and God's blessings. I'm Michelle Graves, the Money Lady.